Welcome to the Nurses and Hypochondriacs podcast, James Valletti.
Thanks so much, Rasilia. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm happy to have you on. You're just like, why am I doing this Nurses and Hypochondriacs podcast? I mean, the way we met was amazing. I loved it. You do. I mean, and you can introduce yourself and what you do with the
Sure.
Go Silent Disco, which I thought was super fun. So tell us about yourself, James.
Absolutely. So I'm James Valletti, originally from New York City, grew up, born and bred in, Brooklyn and Manhattan, and moved out to Palm Springs a couple of years ago and started Mogo Silent Disco, which is a joyous, fun, highly theatrical dance tour through the streets of Palm Springs. And we encourage people to dress up in their caftans, sequins, cowboy hats, wildest outfits, just definitely comfortable shoes. And we dance all through downtown. We have a blast listening to great tunes and just going wild through downtown. And I'm also doing a lot of private parties now too.
I love
Corporate
it.
events, all kinds of bachelorette parties, starting to get into some weddings, definitely team building events. I did something at the San Diego Museum of Art a couple months
Wow.
ago. It was fun. It was actually for Aya Healthcare, and it was a group of traveling
Travel
nurses, I think.
nurses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they basically bought out the museum for their like annual party and hired me to come out there. It was so much fun. They were such a great crowd. They were like dancing in front of war halls and all this amazing stuff through the museum. It was really, really cool. So thanks for having me, and I'm so happy to
Oh my
share
God.
Mogo with
Yeah.
everybody today.
I love that. And I love the whole silent disco thing. I mean, the way I joined yours was very interesting. I knew Maya and Mary Beth. So they were the
Yeah.
ones who organized your last silent disco in Palm Springs for the season,
Yes.
for the that season. Now we're going to come on to new seasons starting end of September, October, because
Hmm.
the Palm Springs is very seasonal. Because this year it was 124 degrees. I was not in town on
No,
that
me
day,
neither.
thank
I'm in New
God.
York now. I'm not even. I get the heck out of Palm Springs for the
Yeah.
summer. People email me still. I have a big thing on the website that says like we're on summer break. People still email me. They're like, "Can we do one tonight?" And I'm like, first of all, I'm in New York. Second of all, it's
Yeah,
113 there
no
right now.
way.
No
No way.
way.
No, nobody is out. You don't see anybody. Like I don't see
No,
any of my neighbors. It's literally a ghost town.
totally.
And you don't see anybody. That's the biggest joke in Palm Springs. You don't see anybody until October, you
Yeah,
know. So
it's like
from
someone
like,
flips a switch in
yeah,
October, and then it's like, oh, great weather again for the next
yeah.
8 months.
And you'll see a ton of people. I mean, the pools are packed though. It looks like Vegas. I was just like, 'cause I went to a couple of the pools to do some Instagramming. But going back to Mary Beth and Maya, so there was something that happened to me in my clinical life, that I foresaw. I was just telling you about my precognition about the makeup. Like I got to put on
Hmm.
makeup, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm thinking this. I have plenty of time, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a minute. So I was just like, so I'm very psychic intuitive, and I saw this situation happen many months ago, and then it actually happened, which I didn't think was going to happen. I was like, nah, it's not going to happen. I'll just write it out. I think it'll be fine. And then the situation ended up happening. And I was kind of prepared with another project because I was had this idea to do Squad, which is a Palm Springs guide for bachelorettes and ladies who love to leisure. And I had met Mary Beth and Maya at a mid mod party here in Palm Springs. It was called the Pink Door Party, and I was taking pictures of them. And we exchanged information, and then they gave me a call. They're like, "Hey, do you want to come do this silent disco thing?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure." And then I was thinking about it, and I started to look at them, and this song kept going through my head by
Uh-oh.
Gwen Stefani, the TikTok song where like I think it's called "What You're Waiting For" or whatever, where
What you
she
waiting? What you waiting
what you waiting for,
for?
right?
Yep, I
Where
love it. Yeah.
she's like in a room, she's stuck, and that was our last podcast, like how to get out of a rut. So she was in this room and she sees a sign like for like this creative think tank type of thing, and she's singing this song like, what an amazing time, what a family, where did the years go by, now it's only me. And I was like, oh my God, that's just what happened to me. That's so bizarre. And all of a sudden she goes into this whole other reality where she meets these Harajuku girls. And so I was looking, Mary Beth and Maya had sent me this picture of themselves at your last silent disco, and they look like the Harajuku girls, and
I
I'm
know.
dying. So one of my friends, I have a Padawan, and I was like, oh my God, look, you know, look, I go, the Harajuku girls are calling me into this other realm. She was just like, oh my God, they look like the Harajuku girls. And it was a trip. So I go, I think I need to jump into this new reality. And I think I need to kind of film it and get a photographer. And literally, I got all that stuff done in 30 minutes,
Oh my
like maybe
gosh.
a day or two before the event,
Yeah.
because I was just like, should I jump? Should I jump? Should I jump into that new world? And I did, and literally I was on the phone and I had met Aurora, who did
Hmm.
our videography, which she did an amazing job
Hmm.
and stuff, which was really cool. And then I also had Bella, who was a photographer who was 7.5 months pregnant and
Oh my
dance
gosh.
I just was like, after I didn't know she was pregnant, she never told me. And after, like at the end, I was like, okay, we have to walk back. Are you okay? I'll get like a Lyft or an Uber. She's like, no, no, I can walk. I just need someone to walk with. And I was like, are you? I go, does your baby like to dance to music? She's like, yeah, all the time. And I was like, oh my God. So you even had,
Perfect.
and she just had her baby the other day.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
healthy baby girl.
Wow.
So
Congrats. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, which was super cool. But where did silent disco come from? Because I started to see it in 2019. Like my cousin had come from New York. He's French. He was living in New York for a while for work. And he had come to see me in LA. And one night I was like, let's just go to the Santa Monica Pier. And there was silent disco going on. And they had like two or three DJs, and we did it, but everybody was dancing to a different beat, which was
Sure.
interesting, but at the
Hmm.
same time, very nobody, it didn't seem like everybody was in sync. But with your
Right.
silent disco, everybody was in sync, which was super cool. So where
Yeah.
did silent disco come from?
So I don't know too much about the history of silent disco itself. I know that a lot of people first have experienced it on cruises. I want to say it was, I don't remember cruise line, Royal Caribbean or Norwegian. Might have been Royal Caribbean actually. I think it was. That's the first place that I experienced it many years ago, and they had a bunch of headsets, and it was done in the disco, in the club on board. And a lot of people I know experience it for their first time on cruise ships. For Mogo, for my business, the way that it started was a friend of a friend who was a camp counselor. It was like kind of so we're still deep in the pandemic, like, and all the bars were closed, all the restaurants were closed, and a friend of a
Right.
friend had all these headsets. He was a camp counselor, as I mentioned, somewhere in like Lake Arrowhead or something, and he came down with a bunch of headsets to Palm Springs, and our mutual friend just texted me and said, "Hey, we're doing this crazy silent disco thing. Like, we all want to dance. Everything's closed. Let's put on our craziest outfits and like march down the boulevard and dance through town." And I said, all right, sounds stupid. I'm in. So I like showed up, invited one or two friends, completely sober, had a great time dancing through the streets. And as we were walking through downtown, people were like picking up on this. They were like, that's so much
Right.
fun. Can I come join? It was very Pied Piper. And I said, God, that was so much fun. And I just left on a total high. We'd been cooped up for months, and all of a sudden you're told you can go out and dance and have a good time and listen to music and be silly with people, which we hadn't done in so long. And I said, this could make a really fun thing, regular thing to do in Palm Springs. And so I said, I actually called our mutual friend. I said, hey, would you be interested in starting this business with me? He was like, no, I'm not interested, but I'm super happy to come and help promote and like be on it and come participate as much as I possibly can. I was like, fantastic. So I started the business, and I thought it was a really good alternative because I feel like Palm Springs is wonderful, and it's a perfect location for it physically. It's a climate wise, it's a perfect location for it. I think there's so many, it's very touristy, the town. So there's always new people coming through who want to do different things. And there's so much to do in Palm Springs that's based, a lot of what people do in Palm Springs when they're visiting is so based around alcohol or food. Like
For
they go out
sure.
and eat or they go out and drink. That's kind of it. I mean, there's options for other things, but I wanted to provide something that combines outdoor activities with physical activity, dancing and music, and something that just doesn't involve sitting in a bar and drinking. Not that there's anything wrong. I love ending at the bar and going in with the guests and having a drink with them, but
For
I
sure.
just wanted to do something totally different and unique, and that it just kind of was lightning in a bottle. And I was like, let's do it, let's start it, and people were just jumping on board and had a have been having a great time with it, including myself. It's basically a side business hobby that has turned into, it's really just a passion for me. I love it. I'm having a blast doing it.
It was so much fun, and the thing that I loved about it, about our session that we had that you did, was how you got the people of Palm Springs involved in our party. You know, people
Yes.
who were sitting for dinner, you handed them the headphones. People who were passing us by, you handed them the headphones, which I think was so cool because then they just started dancing with us, and then you went to
Mhm.
take it away, and they're like, "Wait a minute," you know?
I know. I'm like, yeah, no, you
Yeah.
got to sign up for it.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, "You gotta pay the $30."
Yeah, exactly. It's $30. You got to sign the waiver too. Come on, let's go.
And you gotta sign the waiver, you know. But I thought that was the coolest thing because that is
Thanks.
called social proof. And what you saw in
Yeah.
the beginning, and I had written you that in my email.
Mhm.
I learned about that when I worked for a pharmaceutical company for a couple years almost. And that was one of the things that they did. They like trained us hard on psychology and how to manipulate people, basically brainwash people to buy the product that we were selling. And so we went to this, I think it was at the Cosmopolitan. So they would have these training sessions, but they were like parties.
Mhm.
And so this guy, I have his book right here. His name is Robert B. Cialdini, PhD. So he wrote this book. It's called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. Okay,
Mhm.
which is a pretty great book for marketing and stuff. And in it, he has that social proof. So he was there giving us like a lecture, like in front of 1,000 of these sales reps and educators and stuff. And he had this video where he showed this guy at a music festival just dancing by himself. And he kind of looks a little wacky and people are laughing at him. But before you know it, there's another person that goes and joins him.
Mhm.
And another person, then there's another person, and there's all these people. And so he had coined the term like, oh, that's social proof, and that's usually psychology. If people are watching one person do something, then they're all gonna kind of do it. And
Right.
dance is one of the biggest things too, because
Yeah.
nobody wants to go ahead and start off the dance, but
Mhm.
eventually that one person starts it and then everybody just comes in and starts to dance, which I thought
Yeah.
was super
And you
fun.
see it, you see this social proof time and time again. I mean, in so many different ways. Obviously, the first time that you experience it, even as a kid, is usually at something like a birthday party or a bar mitzvah or a wedding or whatever, where no one's on the dance floor, and then all of a sudden one person goes up and everyone goes up. You see it in. I think I'm sure there have been countless experiments done with this where people are just waiting in lines and they don't know, like, people will just join a line. They don't even know what they're waiting for. They'll join the line.
Exactly. They'll just
Um,
join a line.
they'll join.
I've done that. I did that recently.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. I was walking in Eagle Rock. That's where I grew up. I was
Mhm.
visiting my parents in LA. So I was walking in Eagle Rock and I see all these people lining up, and it's this new cafe. And I was wanting to, like, I woke up and I'm like, I'm going to go check out that new cafe. I knew
Mhm.
nothing about it. I just knew it was like, it hadn't been open. I'm going to go check it out to see if it's open. All these people are lining up and they look kind of like rockerish with just
Mhm.
different color hair and stuff. So I'm like, hey, what are you lining up for? And they're like, oh, Serge from System of a Down, this is his cafe, and he's here today. I was like, no way. And
Oh my
so I
God.
just jumped in the
At least you
line.
knew what you were waiting for. A lot of people don't know what they're waiting for. And I just watched this. It was actually great, great marketing. Payless just did this whole thing. I don't know if you saw it, where they made a fake store called Palessi and invited influencers and
I love it.
all of these, fashion gurus and fashion people. And they were selling their shoes at this grand opening of the store. They were all Payless shoes, but they were priced like $635, $800 for a pair. And they had just sewn Palessi in the label. But because all of these people said, "Oh my God, it's Palessi and it's expensive," and they're doing this big event, all these people were there and they were going up to these influencers and fashion, you know, fashion CEOs, companies, and they were saying, "Surprise, this is actually Payless." So, like, I love stuff like that. Or when they do like wine tests or whatever, anything like where you kind of disprove social proof, or you prove social proof, I should say,
Yeah.
is super funny to me. But in the context of the silent disco, I'm the first one up dancing. I make the biggest idiot of myself to give permission to everyone else to make a big idiot of themselves, which for an hour you look like the coolest uncool people on the block. I love it. It is, and I'm happy to jump in and be the first to start dancing, making jokes, teasing people, talking about passerby, like inviting them into the
Yeah.
party.
You're
I think it's
so
so much
great at
fun. And
that. Yeah.
thanks, I appreciate it. And there's like, it's so funny when like a wife drags her husband on the tour, and you could tell he's just like, "I'd rather be golfing," or like, it's just like, just so miserable. Or it's even better, like, it's funny when you can tell that they're miserable and don't want to participate, but it's even more fun when they try and defy you and they're like, "I'm not going to have a good time on this. I don't dance." And then by like the third song or second song, they're up at the front of the group tapping me on the shoulder and being like, "Can I franchise this? I want to franchise this. This is so much fun." They're singing along. They're trying to make announcements on my microphone. I'm like,
I
oh
love
my God.
they're trying to
It's
take
my
over. Like, I'm the
Yes,
DJ now.
it's my favorite. I love it. And I started when I started the business, it was ticket sales, individual sales. So it
That's what
was,
the girls told me. Yeah.
yeah, and that's how. Oh, Mary Beth and Maya have been amazing. I love them.
Yeah, they're great
They
people.
are so much fun. If I
Yeah,
ever expand and hire people, they're the first people I'm hiring. They're
for
so
sure.
much fun. But when I was doing tickets, it was sometimes hard to cobble together a group, or like, when only four people have bought tickets and you want to take the group out and there's only four people, it's different. So now we've pivoted to more of a group
Yeah.
purchase. So you buy you make a reservation for your group, and it's great because then the people on the tour. You know that your tour is going to happen because there's enough people in it. You've
Oh,
already
yeah.
reserved the space. I know that I'm not leaving my house to go to and one night, you know one night I had a reservation for 6 people or 8 people, a group of 8 people, and it was like a 2 and a 6, and flight of the 6 people's flight got canceled. So I showed up and it was like 2 people. We
Oh,
still had a great
yeah.
time. I offered them. I said, "I give your money back, or like or we can do it." They're like, "Let's do it." So the three of us danced down the block again, like
Love
idiots,
it.
but
Yeah.
so much fun. So now I've pivoted to more just like group buyouts, which has worked really well. And people dress in themes.
Yeah, I
We
love
put
it.
together playlists specifically for their group, or whatever requests they have. They tell me in advance, and we do a theme night. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I know on my last podcast, I was saying Palm Springs is kind of like Burning Man without all that crazy drama, or it can. I mean, there can be some crazy drama sometimes, it's kind of like people come here to kind of dissociate in a good way, and you
Mhm.
can, you know, dress in costume like a lot of the bachelorettes. I've taken about a year with this project, and I've been watching the women specifically who come into town. And because before, I've been in Palm Springs for about 20 years now, and I would do LA Palm Springs, and now I'm 100% in Palm Springs.
Mhm.
And and I've been watching just the change, and before it was mostly gay. I had a lot of gay friends. I would take pride, I would go to
Hmm.
Pride and all, and it was great, and I loved it. And then there's been this kind of shift within the last few years where we're seeing more and more females come in groups of females because they just want to connect and get away, whatever brings them in, like like I was just at the Barbie
Hmm.
convention, BarbieCon, that happened at the JW Marriott. And I met this huge group of females. There was probably like 10 or 15 who come out to BarbieCon. One of them, the oldest, was 96 years old, which I thought was
Hmm.
amazing, from New York,
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's all these things that are bringing these females here together so that they can just lounge, be together, have dinners,
Hmm.
whatever, do silent disco,
Yeah.
but stuff. So it's interesting. So that's why I was like, that we need like a magazine that is more of a feminine vibe, because there's just not anything like that. So I jumped on it, got the idea last year, and I started doing it. I'm kind of a social proofer. People would always copy me. I remember I would just do weird stuff when I worked in hospitals, and I would put
Hmm.
together like weird foods, and people would start to copy me,
Hmm.
all the time, the way I dressed, the way I did something. And I just had someone stay with me, a photographer, for a couple days, and all of a sudden I saw him. He bought the same shoes that I had. Like these,
Weird.
I started
Oh my
I
gosh.
started to notice that he was kind of like, I had made these pickled onions. He was like, "Oh my God, this pickle." And so I gave him a jar of pickled onions, and then he's like taking pictures of the pickled onions and sending them to me on his bagels or whatever. And he's like, "I'm gonna make them." And I was like, "That's great."
You're a
And then all of a
trendsetter.
sudden, yeah, and all of a sudden I saw he did this picture where he's jumping up in the air, and I looked at his shoes, and I zoomed in, and I was like, those are my shoes.
Oh my
He didn't
gosh.
have those before. Those are brand new. I was just dying. I was like,
Oh
oh
my God.
my God. So I'm a total social proof trendsetter.
You are.
I went to my hypnotherapist at the time when I was working, and this was happening a lot. It was annoying. And she's like, "Oh, you're just an influencer." Before, I was like, "What's that?" That was back in 2011, 2012. I was like,
Hmm.
"What is that? I don't know what that is." "Oh, well, yeah, da da da." And I had started a blog and
Yeah.
stuff at the time too. So yeah. So what's the number one most requested song that you get?
I I think I would say we get a lot of ABBA, Dancing Queen. That's
Really?
a big one. And Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody is
Oh,
also
I
a big
love
one.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are big ones. And it's funny because, the the music is I've found that like you can curate a really fun playlist with all different kinds of music, but there are certain standards that people just love to move to. And though, like I said, Dancing Queen and I Want to Dance with Somebody are definitely two of them. I always try to start with a Dua Lipa song, like whatever the hot new Dua Lipa song is of the season. Every season, the first season I started with Levitt. No, don't what is Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa. I started with season
Yeah, I
one. Then
love
the
Dua
next
Lipa.
one was Levitating, and last year it was the third season three of Mogo. It was Dance the Night, Dance from Barbie.
Yeah, yeah.
So this year, I don't know. I'm debating: is it going to be Houdini or is it going to be or what's that training season? I'm not sure. I just love to start with a
I
Dua
love
Lipa.
Houdini. That's another one of my walking songs. That's such a great walk,
Yep,
because I walk,
yep.
I do silent disco here in my complex. So in my neighborhood. So I'm
Yeah.
always like, and I'm always dancing to something and stuff because nobody's ever around, which is amazing. So, um, but
Yeah,
yes,
so those are our big ones. Those are our big
yeah,
songs, I
yeah.
think. But
I picked the Michael Jackson "Don't Stop"
yep, that's a
because
big one.
when she told me, I just was like, "Okay, do I pick a disco song or can I pick any song?" So
You
I
can
was
pick
just,
any song.
yeah, I was because I think she was wanting to make it disco, you know.
Mm. Well,
So I
Maya
was,
loves disco,
yeah.
but so do
Oh,
I
does she?
personally.
Oh, okay,
Oh
okay.
yeah. So
No
do I
wonder.
personally. I love it.
No
Yeah.
wonder. So I was like trying to get something just go to wear. It just wasn't working out for me. So I just kind of put something together. So I was like, what song? And I was looking at songs and I was like, the Don't Stop, I remember was so pivotal for me. And this goes back with the whole time travel and that
Mhm.
movie, Greatest Hits,
Right.
like I would go to this spin class like back in 2008 and I like no, it was like 2002. I had moved back to LA from Orange County and I joined Equinox Gym and I would do these spin classes and there was this there's always the most popular teacher, right? That everybody's trying to
Mhm.
get to their class. And he would always play the Michael Jackson Don't Stop, which was amazing, because it
Oh
was
my God.
great. And it was like every time, and everybody knew, okay, so it totally reminded me of those days, at Equinox, and Equinox was brand new in LA at the time. This was like
Sure.
the flagship gym.
Mhm.
So, but it was super, super duper fun. Do you have a song where you can go back, you know, in time that always reminds you of a certain moment?
Um, yeah, I do actually. I have a lot of those. I mean, I'll just say that I have a lot of them. I think there's two senses I think that are super strong for me, and I think your olfactory sense, your smell is the biggest for recall. I think that's actually
Sure.
scientifically proven. And then for me, I think my second sense for recall is auditory and music.
Well,
So music.
auditory is number one. I had this
Oh,
guy on my podcast and he wrote a book um that I ended up finding at the 99 like the Dollar Tree. I pulled out this book and I don't think he got very much exposure because he published in 2021 and he's a
mhm.
writer for the New Yorker. And I should send you the book. I'll keep it for
Yeah,
you. It's really good. I think you would love
awesome.
it
Thanks.
because I found it the other day and I go, I need to give this book. Here I go, my precognition. I go, I need to give this book to someone. So he had come on the podcast and we talked about sound. And one of the things was like, what would you rather lose, your sight or your hearing? And he was like, you'd want to lose your sight. He's like, you do not want to lose your hearing. He's like, that is
Mm,
one of the most vital, you know, senses that we have.
mhm,
And
mhm.
people think it's sight, but it is your hearing. So, and we go
Wow.
that into the podcast, but very interesting. Sorry to cut you off,
No, it's totally fine.
but go ahead. So tell us about the songs.
There's one, I mean, one that always pops out to me is Love You I Do by Jennifer Hudson from Dreamgirls, the
Oh
movie.
yeah.
It's a very specific moment. I was actually in Fire Island. This was in 2007. It was Labor Day 2007, and one of my best friends and I were out in Fire Island, and we were having a great time. And we had a couple drinks, and there was a show going on, and this drag queen started performing around a pool outdoors. Beautiful weather. Started lip syncing "I Love You, I Do," and at sort of that very moment, we decided we have to do this again next year. Like we have to come back. We should just rent a place here for the summer. And so as that song was playing, we like left the pool show, went across the walk to the realtor's office, and signed the lease on the cheapest studio we possibly could. And like the song was still playing in the background,
I
and
love
so
it.
it was great. It's just a very specific moment. And so every time I hear I love you, I do. And that started sort of a long trend that kind of went up until this year where we would kind of rent out on Fire Island every year. So we're talking, what is that? 17 years now, 16, 17 years of memories all started kind of at that moment when I love you, I do kind of started playing. So that has a very strong one for me. Um, my parents, um, the first song they ever danced to, I wasn't around, but the first was um, Frankie Valli, "My Eyes Adored You." So that song has, even though it's a slower song, has a very important meaning to me because they always would talk whenever that song came on. They'd be like, "Oh, that's our
Love
this
it.
first song we
Yeah.
danced to," or Billy Joel. I have very strong memories of Billy Joel. He was, I've been to so many of his concerts. So
I
all
love
Billy
it.
Joel songs, yeah, like I always think they always remind me of like just good times, you know. I mean, music is just so integral. I grew up in a house with four generations of people, from me all the way to my great grandparents sharing one house. It
Wow.
was like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was a great house. We weren't on top of each other. You know what I mean? It was a nice big house, and
Yeah.
we were very fortunate in Brooklyn where they bought it super early. So it was like, you know, they held on to it. So
Yeah.
we had this great house, all of us living four generations on, you know, four different floors basically. And music was always really, really big. We had guitars, we had ukuleles, we had like a church organ in our house, we had an electric
Wow.
piano, you know. So there was always, my cousins would come over, my cousin played the trumpet, another one played the bass guitar. So music was always really um, important to me and always played a huge part in my life. And even my great grandpa was playing the piano up until he died at 102. We were still playing the piano together. So we have memories of songs, literally like barbershop songs or songs from like the 1910s, the 1920s that he taught me on the piano. So
Wow.
I have a catalog of, you know, music in my brain that's associated with moments, you know. And
I
I'm
love
sure
that.
so many people do, you know, so many people, it's not just me. And so it's really great to see what people request on the tour. And, you know, sometimes they tell me a story about why a song means something to them, or, you know, what's important to them, or it was a celebrity that they love, you know, share or whomever, you know. And so, yeah, there's definitely certain songs that are associated with um, moments in my life. And on the tour, I'm always trying to sneak in a song or two.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, for
Yeah. But you got
sure.
to keep the beat at a certain level, because like sometimes people will request songs that are like real downers, and I'm like,
Yeah.
mm-mm. And I will not play a song that's over 4 minutes or 4 minutes and 15
Yeah.
seconds max, because then it just starts, the tour's like an hour. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
10. You give me a 6 minute song, that's like 10% of the tour. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
can't do that.
That's like super long. I mean, that movie Greatest Hits was so good. I loved it so much. I mean, whoever thought up the screenplay, I just was like genius, you know.
Yeah, I haven't
Because
seen it, but I watched the trailer and it looks great.
yeah, you need to,
I
yeah,
gotta
it's
see it.
on Hulu. And my
Yep.
old hairdresser did the hair on it. He actually is my neighbor now, and we
Oh,
walk
no
at least,
way.
yeah, we walk a few times a month when he's in town. So for
Oh my
sure,
God, I love that.
Matthew is on Matthew Holman. So yeah. So we've been friends for many, many years now. But yeah, so at the end of the credits, he's on there and stuff. So which was cool.
That's
But
so
it
cool.
was such a great movie. I mean, I love time travel, and it's true. It just music just takes you back
Mhm.
to just a different place in time. I mean, for me, it was when I was 14 years old and I went to the Depeche Mode concert with my friend whose name was Kiwi. We're supposed to go with the neighbor, and my mom like trusts me with the neighbor, and the neighbor just like goes somewhere else and was like, okay, you guys, we'll meet you at the end of the concert. Here's like these two 14-year-olds at
Oh
the
my God.
Rose Bowl for the Depeche Mode concert. And I think it's Black Celebration because it all of a sudden started thunder and lightning, you know. But
Oh my God.
any songs that they sang around that time, it just was such a huge thing, you know. I just went to the Janet Jackson concert in June here at the Creature Center, and we got great seats. Like we were right up front, right? Because
Hmm.
we bought like last minute, and it was
Yep.
only a couple $100. And so I oh God, that night was pretty wild. I just was talking to so many people, and then they all, I guess I was giving them my card, and then they would send me pictures.
You're,
That's all I remember. Like I got that Taylor Swift mind swipe. I was like, what happened? Of course, we were VIP, and we went to the VIP lounge, which the pours were pretty hard, you know, like we were talking to the bartender and it was like all alcohol. So I don't even know how much I drank. I don't even drink that much, but that night it was just like I hardly remember. And I remember the next day I was taking out my trash cans, and my neighbor across the street was all singing, "We are part of the rhythm," like at the top of his lungs. And he's like, and I'm like, "Were you at the concert last night?" He was like, literally right next to me. He's like, "I was sitting right over there on the other." You didn't. And I was like, no way.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my God.
But it's so funny. But that's typical Palm Springs. You'll
You,
see like everybody
you,
will go to the same event and it's so
yeah, of
fun,
course.
you know.
It's a small community. People know us as we walk by. We have, the stores come out, they wave, they try and get us in.
Yeah.
Trio was always trying to get it. We would go into their restaurant and dance with like random people. So it's fun. It's a very small town, as you know, and so it's really, really nice to feel the support of so many different people. Like Tommy Bahamas people come out and they dance with us all the time. Like when we
Yeah.
go by, it's great. I'm going to say something controversial here that you're
Worries.
probably going to be like, what? I don't really like going to concerts. I know that's
No, me
crazy.
neither. Me neither
I
anymore. I
especially like
used
arena
to.
shows.
Yeah. I won't go unless I'm sitting front row. I'm not kidding.
I don't get anything out of it personally. Like I think they're so grossly overpriced. I feel
Right.
like you're and look, I've been to so many of them, and I don't mind the smaller, intimate ones like the Bourbon Room in LA or like something like
Yeah.
that. But big arena shows, I have friends who literally go like every Taylor Swift
Yeah.
concert, like anywhere in the western half of the United States, they'll like go. They'll travel. They'll go to Europe for all this stuff, and it's very hard for me to get behind it to pay a ton of money for a
Yeah.
ticket to be up in a nosebleed section. The audio quality is never as good as when you're listening to it,
Sure.
remixed or remastered or whatever, or a recording. Uh, you're looking at all these lights from people's
Oh
phones that
yeah.
they're
From
just
their
holding up.
phones for sure.
People are screaming and singing around you. It's not my cup of tea. Like I love live theater. I love
Oh yeah.
smaller,
Me
more
too.
intimate performances. I would rather pay. I would rather pay if I could afford it 10 times as much to go see a Taylor Swift at the Carlisle Hotel or
Oh
like
yeah, for
the
sure.
Feinsteins at the Regency or whatever in a smaller place than an arena show. So I've kind of stopped going to arena shows. I think the last one I saw, ironically, I think the last one I saw was Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden
Fun.
because a friend had it was the night before I moved to Palm Springs. Actually, a friend had an extra ticket, so I was like, all right, it's free. It's Billy Joel. I'll go, and I'm leaving for Palm Springs tomorrow. And then before that, it was Kelly Clarkson, whom I love
Yeah.
Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah. Same thing with me. I won't go. I'm a snob. I won't go unless I'm sitting front row and the tickets have to be like dirt cheap. Like this one was like
Yeah,
$198 or something,
that's pretty
and
good.
Matthew, he's like, hey, do you want to go to Jan Jackson on 198? And then we were going to get VIP. He pulled some strings and we're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's how I like to go to concerts.
I saw a Madonna resale ticket at the Acrisure Arena. I think
Uh-huh.
don't quote me on this, but it was 5 digits. I think it was
Oh
$38,000 they
my
were
God,
trying to
no,
sell it
I
for.
would not. I
And
have
I was like,
no.
what? This has to be a typo.
Yeah, no way. I mean, I've seen Madonna, I think 3 or 4 times in my life. She puts on a great show, but I was
Yeah.
not gonna people were I go, unless you're buying the ticket for me and unless it's up close, I will not go. But I'm right there with you because it's just not enjoyable to me. I don't like to be around a lot of people anyway. Like I went to
Yeah, I
Coachella
understand that.
once in
Hmm.
2015 and then, you know, I wanted to go this year because Lana Del Rey was there, but I was just like, you know what? I'll just watch it on TV.
I know, I
But
understand.
it's like I'm right there with you, and I will like the only yeah, and so I rarely go. Like I hadn't been to a concert in years, like an arena show. But I only went because the ticket was so good and we were like right up front. I mean,
Yeah,
like Matthew was second row and I was like maybe 1 or 2 rows behind him, but we were right. I mean, we could like you could go up there and touch, you know,
that's great.
uh Janet
I
and it was cool.
I think that's totally reasonable.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I love when people sing on the tour, when people sing the music and you take your headphones off and you can hear them all singing, but you can't hear the
Oh,
artist. So you're hearing because you've taken the headphones off. So that's my favorite thing on the tour to
on
do, which
Mogo.
is
I
like,
love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
a hundred
Yeah.
percent. Like I'm always announced like, all right, ready, 1, 2, 3, sing. And then I take my headphones off and I listen or video everyone
Yeah. I
singing.
need
And
to send you Aurora's video because you would love it.
Yeah,
And I'll have you look because when are you back into, are you coming back in October?
I'm
Or
gonna come back. I'm physically gonna come back probably towards the middle or end of this month, August.
oh, okay.
But I will start. I actually just got an inquiry for a tour in September. I'm waiting to hear about that. But I'll kick off the tours anytime someone books one, starting in sort of September.
Yeah.
That's the plan anyway.
Yeah,
So
because I'm making you the cover because I already saw like Bella had
awesome.
sent me the pictures.
Oh,
And I
cool.
was like, there's one that's super cool. I'll show you right now after we're done
Oh yeah,
recording.
great. Awesome.
And I'll screen share them because I think you'll love them. But
Thanks.
they're very well done, and everything. But yeah.
Cool.
So so tell us where people can find you and what's next for you. I mean, you also work in production, correct?
I do. Yeah. I'm actually looking for work in arts, media, entertainment again, and also there's I'm really passionate about theater and about television, mostly theater, but I spent many years as a television editor as well. I actually think I overlapped on a show um, the
Aurora.
with Aurora, yeah, and which is so funny, blast from the past. Uh, so what's next is to try and find full-time employment doing that, or to grow Mogo if I can
I
find
think
someone.
you need to grow Mogo. We'll talk. We'll talk.
We need to talk about that because I need to find someone. Look, I love the idea part of it. I love the operating of it. I love overseeing it. When it comes to business development and sales, I work best with a partner.
For
Always have.
sure. I'm a good
I've always worked.
salesperson.
Yes, there you go. So like I really want to grow it and to right now I have 120 headsets. I'd love to expand that. I'd love to do larger events. I'd love to grow into other cities with
Sure.
Mogo if I could. I could see it happening kind of all over the world.
Yeah.
There's it is such a common dancing and music is so therapeutic and it's so such a common interest that transcends language, race, culture, age, all of it. And it's healing and wonderful. And I think that there's such a need for that. When people say that they come on the tour and they forget their problems for
I love
an
that.
hour, it's
Yeah.
just great. Like I recently, one of the most um, memorable events I did was just recently. I'm really passionate about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and advocacy for them and working with people who have IDD. And I used to run a book club for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so I just partnered, we did a Cinco de Mayo party towards the end of my last season. We partnered with the Phoenicia Foundation, which is a small organization um, run by Lisa Valerio in the desert, and they benefit. They work with people with special needs, and we put
I
together this
saw that.
whole
That was
great.
amazing.
It
Yeah.
was so cool. I mean, just like so much fun. I've even thought of like, God, is there a world where Mogo has an arm that does not for profit partnering,
Oh yeah,
or is
for
there a
sure.
world where Mogo just becomes a not for profit and brings sort of silent discos all over the world for music therapy and um, events to raise money for things for charities. Like I think it's a um, super great mission that is so relatable and just fun,
Yeah,
joyous.
for sure. So what does I should have asked you this in the beginning. What
Yeah,
does MOGO stand for? MOGO.
nothing,
Nothing
nothing. Everyone is always
like
asking me that.
Irwan
I
nowhere.
wanted, I,
Right?
I wanted, I listen. I tell people who like pressure me, like it's got to stand for something. Got to do. I'm like, it either stands for music on the go or move on, groove on. I don't care.
I love
Take your
it.
pick. Stands for nothing. I wanted a logo with two O's so that I could make a headphone out of it
I
with
love
disco
that.
writing. And I just I had the logo in my head. I didn't have the word. I remember sitting and brainstorming with a friend at lunch, being like, should it be Mogo? Should it be Bovo? Bozo? Like we were just running through names, and I settled on Mogo. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of fun. And then someone was like, oh, what does it stand for? Move on, groove on. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
sure.
sure, perfect. And then someone else was like, music on the go, and I was like,
Love it.
yeah,
Yeah,
great, why
whatever.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, my old grandma's old. I don't care. Sure, you want
I
to maybe great,
I
perfect.
love
Don't
it.
care. But as long as she can dance, she can be as old as she wants. So it
Sure.
doesn't stand for
Sure.
anything, and I kind of like it that way.
For sure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, James, for being
Yeah, thank you for
on.
having me, and
Tell
thanks
people where
for
they can find you if
so
they're
you can
in Palm Springs or
absolutely you
wherever.
can visit, yeah, or wherever. You can visit mogosilentdisco.com. We do the tour in Palm Springs. I do offsite events all throughout Southern California. Happy to travel to Northern California as well if there's something you want a curated, you know, bespoke silent disco for. Always down for it. So mogosilentdisco.com. Our Instagram is mogosilentdisco, and yeah,
Cool.
it's a great time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. Till
Thank
next
you.
time. Bye.
Yes, definitely. Bye.